Thanks so much for coming tonight. This is awesome. Going to have a good chat with Sean, Matt, and Lawrence from While She Sleeps. So can we give a round of applause for the three of them?
Hello.
How's it going?
All right, I thought I was about to go off the back of the stage.
You've got to be a bit careful.
How's everyone? Good? Fuck yeah.
How many of you have met in person before?
We know half of these in here.
Yeah, we know a few people in here for sure.
Like Sleep Society, it came at such a funny time because the record before it was come out on Universal. I mean, being on like a major label like that, I imagine you had like ideas of what that would be like. And then to start something that's your own, something that you're in control of, that you are speaking directly to. I mean, fans is a kind of a funny word sometimes, isn't it? You know, it's almost like friends and family. And when you're in a venue, you're all in there together making that experience. What was the first kernel of that idea where you thought, okay, we're going to make the thing that became Sleep Society?
The idea was kind of cooking for a while. We'd always had this joke where, or not really a joke, we'd talked about when you want to make a record, you need X amount of capital to record it, to make videos, to do the whole thing. And we were always like, the industry model says, do a record deal, sign all your rights away, take some money, use that money to make the record. You've sold the record by that point.
And don't ask any questions when they do that.
Yeah, trust someone else
Trust
with
someone
everything.
else, because that's the way it works. And we'd always talked about this idea where we're like, yeah, but there's 250,000 people on our Instagram and 350,000 on a YouTube. We're like, we need like 50p from each of these people to make the record that we are currently signing our life away for. And we'd always have that thing where we're like, what if, like, surely you could just ask that question and explain it to people and say,
everyone give us a quid.
Everyone, yeah, literally.
And at that point, like, no one had done that. No other band had really done that.
I think when we did the pledge campaign, we did that for You Are We, and I think we were shitting it when we first came up with this idea for the campaign, because this was the first step when we really went without the label.
Yeah.
And when we did it, I think one of the main reasons we did it is because it was so scary. So when we did the pledge campaign, when we seen the result, that was the beginning of this kind of potential idea. And I think that's really the birth of it. We've seen what was possible when, and I think on the whole, people want to help in general. You know, if you're a true fan and if you really support the band, I think on the whole, people want to support what you want to do. So the pledge campaign, I think, was probably the pinnacle moment.
It kind of empowered us, really, in that idea that it's possible with just this connection, and like, we don't need to go third party.
And there's all the chances that it could have not gone the way that it did.
Oh yeah, always. Yeah.
Like that vulnerability, like you can't sniff at that. That's like some real, like, you know, that's brave. That's courageous.
Well, the Sleep Society is essentially acted as our label. So yeah, if it didn't really work, we would have had to scramble a record deal at the back end of a record. Do you know what I mean? So the way it's worked out is that, it's very risky, but they've proven that they can do it.
Someone said to me yesterday that if you didn't say it to me, he said it to loads of people, it was at a gig, but I was like, oh, I'll take that. He said, if you're thinking of an idea and you get scared of the idea, then that's supposed to be the indicator that you use it, or that you go with it. So like that fear is actually a sign of like, oh shit, we should do this.
People talk about like going outside your comfort zone, but sometimes you don't know what that means. Like, but then there are specific things where you're like, okay, that is not comfortable.
And we associate fear with backing away and leaving.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That is typically what happens if you see a scary dog. You're not like, I'm going to pat you.
That's kind of reminds me of like the first gigs I went to, of like going in the pit and being quite scared, but being addicted to it.
Yeah.
And wanting to go back. You know, first time I went to Brixton Academy was like, this is scary, but I desperately want to go back.
Sav broke his nose, didn't he, first time we went to Brixton?
Right, yeah. That's it. Is when you know you're not made of glass. There's an addiction to that. There's a pull. Like shit. I'm not like, you know, I'm mortal, but I'm still alive. So I understand that.
That's it. I mean, a lot of this stuff, there's like business talk in it. There's like capital and fucking profit margins and all of that stuff.
The boring shit.
The boring shit. And
We need it. We do need it, though.
But when you're a band and you get together and you go in your post office van where you've kitted out a bed in the back and you go on that first tour and you come home and you're like, oh my God, that was the most fun experience ever. Like, to kind of marry that excitement, that friendship, that joy, all of that good stuff with the official stuff is something I'm fascinated about, because that's how you make something long term.
Yeah.
And it's almost like taking fun seriously.
Yeah, I get my kicks out of that now.
The first time I went on tour with this band before I officially joined, I got home, collapsed and just cried, because I was like, I don't know at that point if I'm ever going to experience the fun that I just had with these dudes again, because at the time it was a bit like
First time I've ever heard that.
Kind of filling in.
Yeah.
But I was like, I was knackered, I was hungover, I was like, but then at the same time I'd had the best time ever, and I was just like, that was kind of it for a while, and I was like, shit, like, that's it? Is that my touring life? Is that it? Like, the best weekend I've ever had?
Yeah.
And without
like sleeping under the stars in Belgium with an open fire and just sleeping bags and all that stuff. So like that, later on in a band's career, that's when you look back on that stuff and you're like, at the time it can be a bit hard to get through, you know, you don't know when your next meal's necessarily coming, you've got enough fuel to get in the van to the next place. But then looking back on those times now, they are the best times, because you just feel so free and you don't know what's coming from the evenings. But yeah, like you're saying, moving on to later life sort of cycles of bands, it does get...
What you're saying, it interests you, it interests me too, because I think every artist can't deny that you have to wrestle with your own integrity and the desire for success. Like, that comes naturally, because when you start off, it's so free and you're so young and, you know, you're just going with the flow. But then, you know, if you make it a career like we did, money does start to come in, and then it does, you know, it pays the bills and you have to eat. So then, especially when it comes to, you know, creating music and creating campaigns, there's this internal battle that I think you can see happening with everyone. It's like, how do we stay true to ourselves? But we also need to get paid as well. So this is a battle that's very hard to overcome. You need to stay on the integrity side without, you know, losing yourself on the business side of things. But this is, all artists have to face this, and it's a tough one to overcome, because, you know, yeah.
I think it actually knocks a lot of artists down, because they start this journey because they don't want anything to do with that world.
Yeah.
And then so you start this thing because you want to be this free creative, and it's this double-edged sword, because if you do succeed, it turns back into that thing that you don't want it to be, and then that's like a fork in the road for a lot of artists, because you're like, fuck, I'm back here. I didn't want it to get this corporate or this official. So like, I think that really is a roundabout way for us of realizing why we are where we are, because if you are okay to take on that sort of business challenge at the same time as the creative, then you don't hate it, because you know what's going on with it. And it's when you leave that in the hands of someone else, and I think that's when you can get like, it's easy to hate the boss, isn't it? That's what, like, you want to hate your manager at work. So if you sell all your rights to a record label, then you'll always have this finger to point at you. So I think we've realized that you remove that person, and like, the business isn't this horrible thing anymore, because the business is being fueled by a creative drive, rather than like, oh, they're in it because they want us as a product. And like, so I think that's kind of where we tried to find a sweet spot, even if it's like a blessing and a curse for the amount of work it is.
I think we decided a long time ago that we wanted to, when shit went wrong, which it did a lot of the times with management and labels, that if anything did go wrong, is that we knew that if you're going to point the finger anyway, it wouldn't be too far. It was one of, you know, we would drop the ball. Whereas in the past, we've been very passionate about our campaigns, and then someone we barely know would drop the ball in a big way. So I think we just took that blame on ourselves now, which feels a lot better. We still drop the ball in many ways, but at least it's it's one of our fault.
It's
not
fine
some
if you do
stranger
that.
It's
behind a
always
desk.
my fault.
Yeah. So that's why I went like this. It's RT over here.
And that's
always
the funny
my
thing
fault.
about music. I mean, the way I kind of like contextualize it is like how big pop punk got when we were kids, and like even bands like Pennywise, where there were specific record labels like Epitaph or Fat Wreck, and in my teenage brain it was like, cool, I'll be in a band, and then at some point someone will swoop in and make my life fucking easy and awesome. That's not real life.
No, I remember this moment so vividly. We grew up just like completely obsessed with that like early 2000s metalcore movement, this like Darkest Hour, Kill Switch like wave. And I remember watching this Darkest Hour studio video, and we were like, how big are Darkest Hour? They're fucking killing it. And watched this video, and the drummer like had this like proper beat up car that like didn't start, and I was a bit like, what? Like, what do you mean?
Where's that Ferrari,
What do you
bro?
mean the drummer of Darkest Hour is not laughing? I was like, shit, maybe it's too niche.
When you think back to your time in While She Sleeps, when like shit hit the fan, or times like were the hardest, I mean, how do you look back on those times? I mean, like, life's not always easy. Like, in a relationship, it's not easy. Family's not easy. Work's not easy. I mean, are there specific times that you can remember that, like, you're like, okay, that was something where we all learned a little bit about each other, and from that day onwards, we did stuff differently, and we were,
How much time do you have?
There's been a lot of those times, but I think that like the main thing about Sleeps through everything we've been through as a group of mates, firstly, and a band and all that, is just like, if you can work through those things, like 9 times out of 10 you come out of them stronger.
Yeah.
So there's been so many times where we've been like, what's going to happen from this, and like, again, all my fault. But no, joking aside, like, and it has made us stronger. It's made us be able to navigate through something that might happen in the future a lot easier, and
Right.
But
I think because we feel like so almost like possessive over the thing, because we are the longest standing people with the baby that is Sleeps. Every time we've been in one of those situations, we've just gone so fight or flight mode, because it's like, it's the defensive of like, whoa, you like, are you gonna like, is this gonna be taken from us? Like,
Yeah, there's never been nowhere else to go. It's always been
No.
Sleeps or die, really.
So it's actually always like, we have this joke where we're like, we're a great main support. Because when we've got something to prove, we fucking turn it up. And when someone tells us that like, you're fucked, then we go, whoa, no we're not.
Yeah.
And we crank
all the
it.
money rolls in, then we fucking get to work.
Like it almost takes us like the trauma to just like kick us up.
You talked about how that Ali Pali show, announcing it a year before, supporting with the banner, and that moment being such a fucking moment. You don't get many moments in life. That's like a fucking moment. How scary was that? I mean, you said before in like a few interviews that it was like a marathon in the way you sign up for it, and you don't really know if you can do it yet, but you're gonna find out.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, looking at all these these big bands and everyone, you like looking upwards, it seems like it's so outlandish to be anywhere near there. And even at our level, before we did Ali Pali, we still feel the same. And what I've realised is it's like, you used to think that an invitation comes your way for these things to be presented and to to be manifested, but it really isn't. We literally decided to do Ali Pali. It's 5,000 more than what we'd done previous. It makes no sense, but we made that step to make it. We made the space for that to happen. And that, as scary as it was again that I think we gravitate towards these things that aren't comfortable. Mm-hmm. And especially in the music as well, it's the same thing. When we're like, that's not supposed to be us, then we'll do it just because that's more exciting than staying comfortable. Do you know what I mean?
That's Wayne's World. Book them and they will come.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like, build it and they will come. That's exactly what happened with Ali Pali. We're not supposed to do that venue, and it sold out. So
what after that show? that was like, okay, we hunker down now, we make this new record. I mean, what's the feeling after like such a big high like that?
Depression.
We're massive.
Depression. Very contrasting.
Massive and depressed.
Full-blown depression.
Success.
What do you
and
do? You know,
depression.
you get home, you go back into the, because this is one thing that people don't really, you don't really imagine your favorite band rehearsing, unless they put out a YouTube video like bands have done over lockdown. Or you don't think of bands rehearsing and waking up at 8 and going to practice and doing that. But that is most of your time, right?
Yeah, that's the reality.
I think that's the reality across the board, though. You know, like you see a show announced, you're stoked to go to the show, you get your ticket, you're waiting around for the show. But like for us guys, this is like full time. Do you know what I mean? We're grinding it all the time to make every little piece of the machine work. You know, so it's a full-time job. You know,
And you've all got jobs. Aaron is such an incredible director, videographer.
yeah.
I no, he's not here, but like, fuck it, let's talk about him if he doesn't mind talking about it.
Let's talk about it.
Let's big him up. At what point, like,
How long have you got?
having a person who makes videos in a band, that's at this point in 2024, it's basically a necessity.
Honestly, every member of the band still to this day inspires me with what everyone's capable of. So it's not just, we all just sit around the door instruments. Everyone's really talented in very specific human areas that still impresses me to this day. And Aaron just seems to be excelling very fast in this film business.
I think the nice thing about getting to this point now where we didn't decide those jobs and those roles, it's just you kept doing what you felt comfortable in, and that became your role. And because you shouldn't do something because you're told to do it. If you're being told to do something, then it's probably not your job. If you will find your job by the thing you are drawn to in your initiative in that thing. And that's kind of happened, and Aaron's his film. And my favorite thing about us all sitting in like those roles now is just feeling really safe to go, we're making a video, like I actually don't need to be involved with every single step of this thing, because that
took you a while though, hasn't it?
Fucking yeah, it took me years.
I mean, we all like, it's pretty human nature to want control.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, I'm bad for it. Like,
especially when it's a collective vision as well. Like, it's hard enough for us to understand what we want to do creatively, but we know each other so well. We get on the same page quite quickly and understand someone's vision. So I think that's the problem when you go too external, especially with producers and maybe film directors. Sometimes it works, of course. Like, people really understand the vibe and it connects. But at least when you keep it in house, it's not so far away for your like initial idea to get. Someone else maybe just putting too much into it and maybe clouding it, and it wasn't your initial thing that you wanted to happen. Do you know what I mean? So that's a real blessing with Aaron, because he knows what we want, and we can. It's
for the same intention. So if you're going to feel safe, that's going to give it you, because the end goal, you want the same thing for you and for us. Yeah. It's like that's the sweet spot for me.
The studio and the lock-up space looks like such a fucking awesome place to hang out. I'd want to go around. I said to you earlier, I was like, can I build a mini ramp there? Not that I've ever built a mini ramp, but I want to, because that's the kind of place a mini ramp
build a mini ramp, yeah,
should be.
For you.
That'd be great.
I won't skate it.
I asked that question, and you said no. He's all right to build one.
He's not even been yet.
What was it like building? Again, that's like talk about risks. That's a risk. Building's like putting money into that, putting time into it.
I think I was like, Loz, there's a great skate park next door. We're not going to build a video.
There is. It's like 2 minutes away.
What's the great? As in
the house. It's like a great, like Sheffield's like oldest indoor park. It's awesome.
Quality.
Yeah.
Not that I skate anymore.
Do you skate, Loz?
To be honest, this is the longest time in my life that I haven't skated for.
Loz is the closest to a skater that we have left.
I say that I'm retired now, but I'm thinking about dusting it off.
I think once a skater, always a skater.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's part of you, hanging down the skate park.
I just built these big ramps for stage for this summer, like these big fucking travelator things for for the new stage set, and like loved building them, and watched everyone like walk into the unit the next day and be like, that's steep. And I was like,
So steep.
and I was like, yeah, but it's a flat bank. Like, you should be fine. Run up it like you ran up the flat bank. Like,
You have to go to the gym before tour.
we should.
Because that's like that production, that like stage production. I mean, now that's like bigger stages. I mean, maybe not some artists, but like when it's loud music, when it's lights, having the stage production makes a lot of sense. I've never heard of someone building their own stage production.
He's fucking mental, that's why. I went to the studio on Sunday thinking that I'm just going to be on, just going to do a little bit of work. I'm also mental. and I walked in and he's got his fucking, I don't know if you're welding or chopping metal or what, but he's got his mask on and he's trimming some metal and sparks are flying everywhere. It's just hilarious. The Sunday is supposed to be for rest. And I walk in to go to the studio and he's there fucking grinding some metal.
And I'm like, what are you doing here? I thought I had it to myself.
Mad scientists.
Yeah.
So will you like a new week comes around, you'll be thinking of new ideas, how to make it different, how to do something new. That's a regular
In production, you mean?
Well, in everything,
I
whether
think
it's
it's
stage production or engineering or sound wise. I mean, Self-Hell sounds fucking nuts. It's
Tell 'em.
fun and it's hard, and there's sounds on that record that I'm like, what is that?
Yeah,
like, I'm not a
good,
massive engineer head, but like, I'm like, what is that? I don't even know. Is that a synth?
I think that all just stems back to the same goal for us all. You know, like being self-managed, like doing things independently. It's like it's the same with the stage production. It kind of feels like if you want something doing, it's going to be best if we just fucking do it. You know, like rather than you pay more money for it, then it's not going to be right. Then you're going to have to go back and make changes. It's just that whole thing, and I feel like people get it when it's straight from us to you guys and back. Like it's everything's it's pretty much everything is in house now.
Yeah, it's actually getting to a psycho level at the moment. Someone said it. I didn't really. You know, when like it takes someone to point something out to you for you to realise that it's happening. We did this Metal Hammer thing, and they were like, "Yeah, I think the title quote is going to be a DIY arena band," and I was like, "What?"
It's
and I was
true,
like,
yeah.
but I was kind of like, we're at the biggest we've ever been as a band, but we've also gone as far back to the beginning of what you can do yourself in it. And I'd not really realised that this record's the first one where we've done all the videos in-house. Now we've decided to do something bigger production-wise because we sort of tasted that at Ali Pali and we're like, oh, this is fun trying to make the show this next step. But let's do that ourselves. And if you have an idea in your head, anyone who's built anything in this room, it can be a piece of flat pack furniture. Like when the thing exists that didn't exist 2 hours ago, you have this amazing sense. And we have that with production at the moment. That's like an area I'm really enjoying where I'm like, cool, we want to do ramps and these things. It's like, well, let's make it, because I know full well if you go to some like corporate staging company, they're going to be like, yeah, it's 20 grand. And you're like,
and it won't be quite right. I mean, it sounds a bit like cheesy, but when something's made from love, you feel that.
Yeah, all the Ali Pali show, like the letters that you see at the back of the stage, like I'm on Facebook Marketplace searching corrugated metal, renting a van, going to get the metal, getting it back, putting a projector onto the thing, drawing it, cutting it out, welding it, and like. But it's the same thing as when we built the warehouse or when we first did a record independently. The empowerment we got from creating it ourselves was like better than any large scale cash advance you could get from a fucking major label or anyone like.
Well, it depends on how much they would have given us. I mean,
the price is right.
If the price is right, we'll do it. You know what I mean? But what Matt's saying, I think, as well, is it illustrates just the simple fact that what's more important. Do you want the finished product like this, just because it'll be all perfect, or are you having fun while you're doing it? It's that simple with kind of every aspect of the band.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wider thing here, like whether you're in a band or whether you're an artist or you're a poet, like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, like they're all fighting for our time to make us feel not very special, ultimately, right? And to make us like not go out and create, and like boredom.
Yeah.
Boredom is so fucking important. You need to be. If we hadn't been bored, you might have not started a band. A lot of people here wouldn't have started personal projects.
Yeah.
Having that kind of thing, like having no reason to do something, is the coolest fucking thing. Because you said it, but you make something that wasn't there before. That inspires someone else.
It's the best. When I just make something and then I spend the rest of the night just like stood looking at it.
Dude, my entire life is making my own music and then listening to it. That's all I do.
Oh, it is. If Sean had like,
sad.
If you could do like Spotify Wrapped on Sean's phone,
With my own
it
shit,
would be
bro.
like Sean Long.
Hey, if you can't back your own shit, well, you know what I mean? Who else is going to back it?
You got to turn up to the show in the car park, blasting it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, tell him about the settings thing. It's not anything to do with what we've spoken about.
Oh, it's
just
all about it.
It's just fun. You're talking about his phone then, so I was just...
Yeah.
This is gold. This
Fucking amazing.
yeah.
So I'll background it. Sean's techie, great on Pro Tools, that kind of thing. Loz isn't very techie,
Not very good at much, I don't
but
think.
but
No, come on.
we go to Loz has his ears to the ground with the local music scene and has done for our entire career. When we first met, he was putting on shows. First show I ever went to in Scunthorpe was Loz putting on it in Shikari, and like people were climbing the curtains. It were crazy. We went and camped in someone's garden after it. It
Mine.
was sick.
My garden.
Yeah, Loz's garden.
I was smashed.
And he's been doing that for. This is that thing. You don't choose your role. This is Loz's role. He can tell you who he thinks the next coolest band is in our genre or in a different one, and he's always paid attention to that and put on his own shows. Doncaster basically had a music scene because of Loz, and now he's putting on other shows
Climb
in different
out.
places. Oh, no, there it is.
Tom Welsh, that one.
And anyway, so that's his strength, not tech. And we're sat on our phones going. You know when you do screen time and you're like, what? I'm like, fucking hell, I've been on my emails for like
How many hours you spend in a day?
3 hours
It's
a day.
so fucking good, man.
And she's like, oh yeah, I'm on Instagram for an hour and all these things. And we're like, okay. And we get Loz up. We're like, Loz, what's yours? He's like, says I spend 20 minutes a day on settings.
His most used app is settings, bro.
So he's just on settings trying to work out, surely it's going to be on here somewhere.
How do you
Where's the
work this
volume
bloody thing, you know what I mean?
He's got his text size on large.
And if you know he's holding it like that as well. He's going like the settings like
If you know me with technology, it's just perfect that happened, and I was just like, how is that? I don't spend all my time on settings at all, but like, that's what, yeah.
Posting accidental selfies.
We worked out, we're like, Loz spends like 2.5 hours a week on settings.
Just staring at it.
Being from Doncaster, did you
Yeah.
meet Youngblood at an earlier age? Any of him and his friends? And
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
They seem interested. They seem stoked on life. You know, like some of the earlier videos from around Doncaster, like they seem excited to do it. You know, I think that like, whether no matter how much you're into someone's music, like the kind of enthusiasm that is infectious.
That's probably because he's stoked that he got out of Doncaster. That's probably why.
Hey.
Yeah, now then.
Dom definitely has like a bottleable energy. Like he is, regardless whether you like his music or not, he is that stoked about what he's doing all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, and we know him from offstage and from Donny, and like, yeah, he genuinely is like that buzzing.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, when you got local shows, and I mean, I think we see this a lot around the UK. I'm from near Watford, so I was lucky to see Gallows and Enter Shikari and Your Demise, and those.
Yeah.
Those were some of the first bands I
Yeah,
saw.
good bands from that place.
All quality bands and like good venues. There'd be like scout huts, and the promoters there are now kind of booking agents that you read and hear about.
For sure.
And it is a bit of a thing. And even back then, it was like, support your local scene, otherwise it won't be here. That does happen. Like all scenes kind of go in peaks and troughs. You know, it might be buzzing for a couple of years and go down again. So it kind of makes me think, like, what does that come down to? I guess it comes down to people's like real lives, where people are working, if they can afford to pay rent, or if they're staying at their folks' houses, and if they can put on shows.
And if you have people passionate enough to want to, it's not about like, it is about going to a show. It's about like any of us seeing a band we like or going to see a band that we don't know. But it also takes a few key individuals in those areas to be like, I want to put on shows. Like you lose those people and the scene dies. The scene is actually like I'm not talking about O2s and venues that are like funded. I'm talking about like who's putting on someone in Rotherham where I live. Do you know what I mean? For their first gig.
That's it. And you feel seen. I think if you live in Rotherham and you get past a flyer at school or at wherever you're at skate park, you're like, oh fuck, this is for me. Yeah. And that goes so far. I think those local promoters are so important. And talk about doing things you've never done before. Promoters, everyone's puts on their first show.
We actually didn't connect in Sheffield first. We were playing shows in Sheff because there was a venue called the Boardwalk that you could basically like message and they would give you like a UK unsigned night and they'd give you a book of tickets and you sell it to your friends and like give them the money for it and they give you a quarter back, some shit I can't remember.
Pay to play.
And we did that all the time. Like I did that from my first band all the way up just because it was the best place to get a decent show. But we never it never necessarily caught on there. And then we got a gig with Loz's old band in Doncaster. A band were called Fail to Reason. That's right, yeah? Yeah. They were sick too. And rocked up at the Leopard in Donny. My dad drove us to the show. He had like a work van. And we just put deck chairs in the back of this like Sprinter. I think there was no light on and we just sat in deck chairs like with the gear in the back. Played this show in Donny and Loz's band were playing and like the scene was totally different. It was like there was like a load of people and they were just up for it in the same sort of way that we felt when we first went to Europe and we're like, oh, these people just want to like listen to live music and they don't have to know who you are. They're just like, this is cool. And we had that connection first in Doncaster and then just started playing there regularly. That's how we met, really.
That's what's really tough, though, I think, about like social media and stuff now. Like the grassroots venues at times seem to really suffer with people not prejudging a band before they go out to see a band. You know, I don't know. That must be a lot tougher now, in a sense, than it was because you just go on Spotify, check through the songs. If it's not for you, you kind of like you might miss the best live band you've ever seen. What's always been important to me is like I grew up where I grew up, Doncaster, and I met these guys there. The first time I saw these guys play, I was like, fuck, these guys are going to be fucking massive. Like 16 years old, absolutely shredding, like
you were right as well.
Early in the new metal fucking metalcore scene as well. Became pals, but to me the important thing is no matter how difficult it gets in those areas, still trying to bring a community together and put on local shows for youngsters to get influenced by, and because when that dies, like, what is it all just going to be arenas or big venues? So yeah, I'm working on projects at the moment actually with Doncaster Council to get something. Whereas Doncaster is like a city now, and it's like there's no real venue there.
So, shout out Donny.
That's quality that you're working with the local government and having those discussions. Is it about like how do we invite people out? How do we bring people out their houses? How do we make it affordable?
Yeah, because that stops and everyone just goes to Leeds or Sheff or Nottingham. I mean, Sheff's even having less shows, but you just like, oh, we're going to O2 in Leeds or whatever. And
it's those mid-sized venues that are missing in a lot of the places. So it's either like 3,000 to an arena or 150. Do you know what I mean? They're really struggling with those 500 to 800 cap rooms, which is where a lot of like the decent new bands need to be. So I think that's what kind of prevents a lot of bands from going to these B and C market venues kind of thing.
And like as soon as it falls, it's like it's such a domino. As soon as that venue closes and Doncaster doesn't have someone putting on a metal night, it just no one's going to anything alternative related. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing putting on, so the scene just tanks.
And there's thousands of people who play in bands in the UK. Thousands of people who go to shows in the UK. There are all these people. I sometimes think like what I've realised in a few years of doing this podcast is I don't know why I started it. I just thought I was interested in it. And now I'm like, well, I think it's really about reflecting all those people in those small towns or big cities who are just stoked on music and they need somewhere to go for it. They need somewhere to learn from. They need people to look up to. And
it's like reminding yourself that if we all can sit here now and talk about the best bit being the beginning, then like what are we doing to make sure that the beginning bit still exists? Like that's
Because you never want to leave it in the past, right? Because it's such a big part of you. It's who you are.
yeah.
Well, I think about that, about Signature Brew, you know, mentioning Sam having this idea and starting it with his cousin Tom, and then being in here where these giant beer vats, that comes from an idea, and then using your resources, being smart, putting your money where your mouth is and your time where your mouth is.
Well, it's like anything, like you see Dragon's Den or whatever, and you're just like, that's just such a simple idea that's now massive. I'm just constantly walking around trying to think of those ideas to be like, I've got an idea.
You got it?
I had one that was like a towel onesie. It was a full onesie made of towel.
Well, a dry robe.
Eh?
It's a dry robe.
Yeah, but when I this was a couple of years back.
It's a wounding moment when you find out this exists.
No, but there was like ponchos at the time with hoods, like surfers used to wear them and stuff, but there wasn't like a full suit. Imagine going swimming, not having to dry off, just zipping a suit, getting the car, go home.
Do you need that?
By the time you go home, you're dry. Or you got kids, zip your kids straight into it, hood up, they're drying on the way home. You know
And
what
I
mean?
guess that you're not getting sand in your feet between your toes?
No, well, not at the local pool, no. But like, they would wait.
What yours is like?
They would wait for a beach as well. Yeah,
Go back to Chelsea
just a
after
dodgy
this.
plaster stuck on your heel or stuck somewhere. You know what I mean?
Get Veruca gel out.
But yeah, I'm always like, there's got to be something you can think of here that's going to make millions.
I feel like most people in the UK, most people like our age, around our age, you know, like 20s to 30s, I think people are like feel like there aren't many opportunities for them. And that's, you know, bigger. We're not. That's a big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like we're all. It is about the individual and like sparking ideas.
Well, what we're saying about Ali Pollage, I mean, there's not so many. They may feel that there's not many opportunities, but it's that scary step of making the decision that I'm going to do what I want to do, and then hopefully that will bring in the opportunities that are necessary. And I think when you're doing something fresh, at least you need to create the space for the things that you have the vision on to manifest within this space. You know what I mean? That's the scary part, making that move. You know what I mean? So opportunities will come if you put yourself into it, I think.
It is signing up for the marathon before you've done any training, isn't it? It's like you now will train and you have created that thing. That's like sometimes you just need to just write your name in a box and go, we're doing it. Yeah. We've done it. We've done the next one and we can't tell you what it is.
Yeah, quality. I was going to ask you what it is then and try and trick you.
Okay.
What is it?
It's not hard to work out, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
But anyway,
We're going to start a toboggan team. That was it.
Feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme.
So we did want to keep it quiet, but
nice one, Loz.
That's our next venture. That. Yeah.
Sleeps are going into the Olympics. 5 mid-30s, relatively unfit dudes.
What I mean, is there a way you could do that? I mean, is there a way you can enter something like that without, if you get the necessary
There's a film about this.
There is a film.
There's a film about this.
No, it's a documentary.
Is it? Which one have you seen?
It's a documentary, dude.
Yeah, it's a documentary.
You know about Cool Runnings, right?
Yeah.
It's not a documentary.
Not a documentary.
That's a good film, dude. Nah, mate.
Fair.
What?
Have you ever seen a documentary?
There should be a podcast about that Giles doesn't know what Cool Runnings is.
That's the clip. You've just got yourself the clip.
What about, like, you started this band when you were teenagers. There's going to be loads of times that maybe, you know, like the road's not massively certain. You know, there's like paying rent. There's like relationships. There's family. There's like self-care. What do you think are like the main parts, or the main things that have happened, or the you know, circumstances that have allowed you to?
I'd just like to say that initially, I think that when we joined the band as it is now, meeting 4 other dudes in the band that don't compromise anything, like in terms of we are going to be in this band for a long time, and having 4 other dudes in the band with the same goals and the same amount of determination and all those things has been the biggest thing for our band, because since myself and Aaron joined, we're like the latest members technically, but like since then it's been the same lineup. Nothing looks like it's going to change, and that can be hard to find. You know, that's the same commitment levels. That can be very, very hard to find.
I think it's harder to find the musicians at this point. I think because maybe we were blessed with a time frame where the internet didn't exist in the way it does now. So you almost now can see too many opportunities, so you don't know which one to go for, because like you could see a video and be like, I want to start doing that. Like we had this like feeling which had been there like forever really. I've been obsessed with being in a band since probably like 2000, and yeah, we sort of shared it. But I'll explain a little bit, a good story about the beginning with Loz. So when Loz talked about that trip to Belgium, he filled in for Jordan, our old vocalist, and we had been making sort of like 3-track demos and putting them out on MySpace and playing in Doncaster, and we're like, okay, this is like kind of starting to work a little bit, but who knows what. We definitely had like set on stars, but who knows where it was going to go. And then we finally got offered a proper tour. Before that, we were doing like 2-day tours, just all in Yorkshire, Sheffield, Scunthorpe, Doncaster, home,
Back home.
next weekend, Sheffield,
TBC.
Scunthorpe,
Yeah.
and we got offered this tour with ignominious incarceration. Shout out, and we got offered this tour with them. And we were like, boys, it's a fucking tour. We're going to Colchester, Essex,
Yeovil Ski Lodge.
And we're
legendary.
like, oh my God, we're doing this tour. And we all sort of had part-time jobs, or we were in college or whatever. And we were like, well, if you can't get work off quick, because like we've just been offered this tour and we've been grinding for the last sort of 3 years or whatever to get to this point. And we were watching other bands. We were watching like Architects and Bring Me were booming, and they were always on tour, and we're like, how the fuck are you getting these tours?
And Penknife Love Life.
Yeah, they were sick.
All that era. And Jordan, our old singer, was like, I can't get work off for this tour, and I don't think I can quit my job. Like, I've kind of got like...
And we were like, see you later, mate. We're out of here.
And then I was like...
And we'd been
Excuse
playing...
me, is Matt there?
Yeah. We'd been, honestly, it was his house phone as well. I've got his house phone number.
Those are the days.
And we'd had this weird like relationship with Loz, where since we played in Doncaster with his band, we watched Loz and were like, holy fucking shit, that dude's sick. And we'd had this like...
We always fancied him, but we couldn't have him. No
like,
offense to Jordan, but we wanted a bit of Loz, like.
Yeah, we had like... We used to have this like chat at school. You were like, can you imagine it with Loz? Can you imagine? And then Jordan couldn't do these shows, and we were like, should we ask Loz? And that was when he got home and cried. And I think we probably did it at the same time, because we were
We all
kind of
quit.
like...
We quit our jobs, didn't we?
We were like, fuck, was that it with Loz? Have we just tasted what the band feels like with him?
Tasted the pizza.
And then we got offered this tour, and Jordan said that, and we were like, okay. And we asked Loz. He was working as a teaching, a teaching assistant in the school.
LSA, like a learning support thing.
Nice.
I literally just quit a band called Revenants because they weren't dedicated enough. And just fucking about, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to do what Jordan wanted to do and not get the time off work. And
That's brilliant. Because that's funny, but that is what it like. If you need that foundation.
And I asked Loz, we were like, let's ask him. And he was like, yep, I'm in. And I drove in the van to Armthorpe School in Doncaster to pick him up from his last shift. He was like, I'm quitting. And he got in the van.
Literally just like, yeah.
And we drove back to Sheffield, and he ripped his teaching shirt off and his tie. He threw them out the window.
Tied my shirt around my head.
And he just goes, what are we going to do to get fucking massive? And we literally...
Pneumonia.
We just went... We were just like, okay then. And we all moved into my dad's house and lived in this fucking like outbuilding. And we had 2 computers rigged up. And if you weren't doing anything, you had to sit on the computer and add friends on MySpace.
That was a legitimate, like, important job as well. That
used to get
like
trashed on like cheap cider and just add people, and like until you couldn't add anymore, and you were just passed out or something crazy was going on.
And we were like, this is it, we're doing it. And we recorded the No Stands for Nothing at that time, and
off our head and all.
yeah, like 2 litre, because you can get a 2 litre cider for like £1.50 or £2, 3 hammers or whatever it's called.
Frosty
Like,
Jacks.
My favourite moment of that whole
what are
recording
you going to say? My favourite side
is that my favourite side of that.
Oh, my favourite one was 3 hammers.
No, my favourite moment of that recording in North Stands for Nothing is me having like 2 teeth out by a student because I didn't have a dentist.
You get free teeth work done if you go to like the student hospital.
Yeah. So we were living in a barn, no cash, whatever. When I had 2 teeth out, it obviously dipped my immune system. I got full-blown pneumonia, and we used to like smoke a bit of wacky backy and all that kind of thing. And I remember Matt just saying, "You'll be right, mate. You're just a bit stoned." It got to the point where I nearly died. So in the video for North Stands for Nothing, I've got like a massive bulged out like face from the thing. After that, caught pneumonia, and it was like Victorian. So I ended up upgrading from just sleeping in the barn to going into Tom and Matt's house.
Room.
And someone every hour would just come and just dab me and refill the bowl or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to have to go and sort this out, lads. I'm dying. And they were like, if you'd have been a bit later on this, you could have literally died. But Matt was like, you're all right.
I think
And so
you were like, my chest's really heavy, like it really is. And I think I remember saying to you, like, yeah, mine feels like that in the morning. But like, every vocal that went into North Stands for Nothing, every time I breathed in to do a vocal was like a knife going in my side. It was like... Also worth pointing out, shout out my dad for this, when we were living in this place, there's no heating in the room, and he bought us a patio heater, and we just used it inside. So
it was just a gas fix. That's
gas
what gave me pneumonia.
Yeah.
That's why I got pneumonia.
And years later, I'm like, we just like burnt all the oxygen in the room that we lived in because we just had like a full-blown smoking patio heater on, and we were smoking at the same time.
No wonder I had pneumonia and fucking like.
But we made the North and Loz joined, but yeah.
Quality. I guess you got that was before self-help came along.
I think, yeah.
Self-help.
Yeah.
Self-help.
we barely breathed oxygen or drank water back then.
True.
But
the way it
we were so excited by the idea of being in a band together and actually going, this is what we do, that you kind of want to live like that because that's what it looks like in your mind.
You mentioned, well, just before this upstairs, talking about band docs, band documentaries, and that Parkway Drive doc where they first came. It's on YouTube, that, so anyone can.
Oh, it's so
watch
good.
it.
So good, yeah.
And they come to Europe, and they are just like, they're getting ill.
I think they came to Europe without the tour confirmed and just were like, we'll just sleep in a van and wait for the gigs to get confirmed.
Yeah. You wonder how many people are doing that right now.
Yeah.
There must be some people doing that.
Yeah, in like a real crusty punk world. I think
they don't have an Instagram.
Yeah, I think in different genres now that probably won't exist. You know, due to some of the things we've spoken about. But I'm sure there's plenty of rockers still doing that.
That's it. Hey, thanks so much for being up for doing this. Love these
no problem.
conversations.
Good.
It's great to do it with people. It's great to have this conversation, you know, as a community, as a team. 101 part-time jobs. There's always going to be part-time jobs. Money comes and goes, is the old saying. It's definitely true for fucking me. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you've got to try and do some extra bits and bobs to pick up a few quid. What are some of the most memorable part-time gigs you've had along the way?
Good question.
Fucking hell, we've done this and only this for way too long.
I've done a lot of jobs, really. Like, before I joined the band. I'm a bit older than the guys, so I'd done quite a few.
Had you been quite smart then from the start, from the first sort of like tour that you made money on? You were like, okay, how do we do that?
We just lived off cold beans.
Yeah.
It was like we had this pull-out plastic tub in the first van, and we were like, if everyone takes like some tins out the cupboard at home, then like you can basically live off cold beans. And
it's protein.
And we used
lots of farts.
We used to steal pasties from services quite religiously.
The amount of pasties that have been down our trousers.
I think what did we get paid? We got paid 50 quid.
That was a Ghost Fest.
Yeah,
we remember when Ghost Fest, he paid us 50 quid. We're like, how can we make this work?
And I think we put 30 quid in van.
That's what I mean. After petrol, maybe one of these 2-day tours we did, it worked out that we all got 2 quid each. This was our payment.
Bottle of cider.
A day, so yeah, 2 quid a day, and that was obviously on drink. So we got a bottle of cider. Then the rest of the food would have to be either stolen or someone's nan's fucking beans or something.
I I got fucking busted in. I don't know. It might even be Watford Gap, to be fair. And I'm just like in the servo, and I've got a cheese and onion pasty down my trousers, and some guy just walks up to me and it's just goes, "You're gonna pay for that?" And I was just like, "Can't." And I just had to really embarrassingly just pull this Ginster's pasty out my trousers and like offer it him back.
Do you remember when we had no money and we were in France and I got a raw salmon sandwich, and I don't like raw salmon, and I was that annoyed I punched this sandwich to death. And there's at this time loads of vegetarians in Man, and I was just going, and there was just bits of salmon and
there was salmon landing on people's faces.
Hard times.
Yeah, I wouldn't say smart's the answer. I think just resourceful. You're just like.
There was no other option. That's just how it happened.
Yeah.
And I explained to the copper, I was like, I can't afford this because the money's in the van. We're doing this, blah blah. And he was like, okay, fair.
Yeah. I feel like most people kind of. I mean, people shoplift all the time. I don't shoplift.
Dude, you'd be surprised how much you can get away with.
Especially on self-checkout now.
I used to.
That's a bag of, that's 20 kilograms of potatoes.
Dude, I used to take orders from people because I knew I could get it all. Just fucking.
And I think
Don't obviously do it now. I said that.
Worth noting, like, we had this. Oh God, I can't tell the Tesco meal deal story.
Which one?
I can. We had this realization. I'd never in my fucking life steal from an independent shop.
No,
but these
no.
massive fucking companies where I was just like, fuck them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
Punk rock, innit?
we had this. I shouldn't tell the story, but someone taught me this, and they were like, if you go into Tesco and buy a meal deal, shout out Tesco. If you go into Tesco and buy a meal deal and walk out with the meal deal, give your mate the receipt, they walk straight in, pick up the same meal deal, walk straight out reading the receipt, no one asks a question. We did that 5 times round until everyone's got a meal deal, and then the last person walks in with the remnants of the meal and says, this tastes like screen wash.
And then got a new one.
And then they go, what do you want? A new meal deal or your money back? And we'll get money back, please.
I found this out, it's a different story, but if you're unhappy with a product food-wise and you tell them it tastes like Dr. Pepper, they can't argue because they don't really know what it tastes like. It's like, I can't eat that, it tastes like Dr. Pepper. They're like, right?
Say
right
the screen wash.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
What's that thing? Teach a man to fish.
Yeah, and yeah, we did that as a means to survive. And I mean,
So
I wouldn't
sent it.
recommend it. Yeah.
You sent it. You went full send.
Full send with nothing.
I'm sorry
Nothing
if
to
this
lose.
comes back on your podcast.
Oh, all good. I'll go take it out for you for the US visas.
Nah,
when you
fucking
get
leave
like,
it
oh, this is fucked us for US visas, isn't it?
in. For you 5 thieves.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, what's it called? The statute of limitations.
That was 2010.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll say
that
it now.
Yeah, we're alright. It was not nicked before. Come on.
I'm a lawyer. You can do this. I've got a BTEC in law
Yeah.
from Amersham College.
Nice.
Hey, thanks so much for being up for doing this. This is
No
great
problem.
stuff.
All good.
Cheers.
Thank
101
you.
part-time jobs while she sleeps. Shout out Signature Brew.
Woo!
Thanks, Giles. Thank you to all as well.
Cheers,
You're a
guys.
legend.
Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
coming.
Thank you.